In this episode, I'm talking with Kevin McMindes, the Assistant Director of Analytics at Greenville Technical College. We discuss how Greenville Technical College applies its data to deliver individualized student support proactively, and how he incorporates regular initiative analysis to identify the initiatives that are most impactful for particular student populations and to connect students to the right support at the right time. Kevin also shares how his IR team piloted outreach to students based on persistence likelihood, resulting in significant persistence gains. He also walks us through how he developed an analysis to correlate initiative impact with return on investment, helping to provide leaders insight into the most impactful programs, where to adjust programs that aren't performing quite how they imagined, and where to allocate resources to help bolster the impact of their student success initiative. Our guest today, Kevin McMindes, is the Assistant Director of Analytics at Greenville Technical College, where he wrangles and interprets data. Raised in New England, Kevin served 23 years in Marine Corps aviation. He earned a BS in mathematics from the University of Florida and an MS in operations research from the Naval Postgraduate School. He and his wife, Marty, are the proud parents of 4 Greenville Tech graduates. Before we dive into my conversation with Kevin, take a moment to subscribe to the show to stay up to date on the latest in data-informed approaches to student impact. Kevin, welcome to Next Practices. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing how your institution is working to help students reach their goals during college.
Thank you for having me.
So let's get started by having you introduce yourself and your institution to our audience. Can you tell us about Greenville Technical College, who it serves, its mission, and your role in it?
Absolutely. Greenville Technical College is one of 16 technical colleges here in the state of South Carolina. And we serve 10 to 12,000 students per term. And we are one of the top 3 as far as size in the state of the technical colleges. And our mission is to really impact students' lives, right? Empowering them with education to be able to really transform the lives and increase economic success and right, enrich the community, all those things. So we're really student focused.
And what is your particular role as part of that mission?
Yeah, I am Assistant Director of Analytics. My title officially changed today, but excuse me, I've really been focused on doing a lot of data analysis, statistical analysis on our student success initiatives and finding out what are the things that are really working, where are they working well, and where do we need to improve.
Well, congratulations on your new title. That's really exciting.
Yeah, thank you.
So let's talk through it. I know that depending on the institution, the region of the country, the students that you're serving, there are going to be a lot of challenges that an institution might face. And those challenges are different for different institutions. What are some of the top student success challenges that you and your team are working to solve?
Well, we have really been stuck for quite a while with our persistence rate, and it was hovering around 70%. Our retention rate is lower even than that, of course, as it is in most places, but we really wanted to focus in on our persistence rate and really try to move the needle on that because we'd worked really hard at doing a bunch of things and it hadn't really seemed to make a difference. And so we started focusing in on persistence and okay, what are the different things that we can do to really focus on that? So one of the things we did kind of early in this effort was, as a college, we adopted the 4 disciplines of execution, which really helped us focus in, okay, what is it that's important to the college as a whole? And then each department underneath of that could say, okay, with that in mind as the college goal, what do we do to contribute to that so that we can focus on the one thing that we think is going to impact that the most, and what are we going to do to get better at it? And so around that same time, we had the Civitas learning platform on board, And in our institutional research office, we thought we'd like to do kind of a proof of concept, leveraging stuff we get out of the Civitas learning platform to be able to do outreaches to students and see what kind of a change we can make. So in the summer of 2020, we started this, and our goal was over a year, we were going to reach out to students that were in those very low and low persistence prediction categories and try to move them into a moderate or higher category. And we thought that was pretty aggressive, 100 students over a year's time. And the way we were going to accomplish it was we were each going to reach out by phone and by email to 5 students a week. And keep in mind, we're institutional research people, right? We're not advisors. We're not the front-facing student, interactive, outgoing sort of people. We're really kind of data geeks, and we're a little more introverted. I can say that without animosity because I am one. Absolutely represent that. Um, and while we were doing it, honestly, we thought, not really sure we're making a difference. And then I started um, actually we one of the keys about the 4 disciplines of execution is that uh, you track how you're doing along the way. So we were tracking along really well with reaching out to our 5 students by 2 modalities each week, and so we started looking at how are we doing, and I couldn't believe it when we actually started putting it on a chart like, wow, we are moving a lot of students. By the end of the summer, we had already moved 129 students. And by the end of the fall, we had gone to 219. It was kind of crazy because we thought, that we had that sense that maybe we weren't really doing anything. So my next thought was, okay, this is it's still predictive in nature, right? Um, which people are a little bit leery of because it is, a little bit, it's all that data analytics and then there's a little bit of black box associated with it. And we really don't know what's going on. So I thought, you know what, at this point, I can evaluate the summer. So in the summer, and again, I'll share my screen here. In the summer, I looked at the students we'd reached out to, and turns out we'd reached out to 259 students. And based on the prediction that we had, we should have seen 32.5% of those persist, or about 84 students. What we actually saw, and this isn't the prediction, this is the actual number of students who returned, 149 students. So we went from 32.5% predicted persistence to 58% almost of actual persistence. So that's a 25 percentage point lift or a 77% increase in what was predicted, or in what was actual over what was predicted. So we were like, wow, this is crazy good. And just reaching out to students, checking in with them. And the message was pretty simple. It's like, hey, we're part of an outreach team, just checking in on some of our students to see how things are going. We'd love to hear about any successes or any challenges and barriers that you're running into. And we'd love to hear from you. And if I don't read, if what I did when in my emails was I would start with that email and I would say in the email, if I don't hear from you by Friday, I'll reach out to you on Monday. So that I
Mm.
gave them that impetus that, hey, if I don't if you don't respond to this, I'm coming after you, right? With a phone call. But that also gave them a sense of, okay, does this person really care? And then when you actually reached out to them, the impact was pretty phenomenal. They're like, wow, people at Greenville Tech really care, and it matters to them what we're going through. So it was just a phenomenal um, example. And, again, not advisors, not trained counselors, just data people doing a simple outreach. So we we took that, we celebrated that, and we published that pretty widely across, and it really got people's attention that, oh, hey, maybe there's something to this, both with the predictive analytics and with the messaging that we included in there.
That's remarkable. I mean, it really shows how proactive, precise, authentic, I don't know if that's the right transformational messaging that's about connecting with the student, really helping the student sort of thrive at the institution can make such a big difference. You know, instead of having a big email blast to everyone, really being able to see who needs a little extra attention and care and deliver that in a timely, proactive way, just from a human on the campus, right? It's like the part that you said, we're IR. We're not advisors, we're not student success professionals, but we're humans on the campus who are reaching out and showing the students that we care and how that can make a big difference. And then what an even bigger difference that can make when it's offices and professionals who also are trained and have the resources to take them to the next level to deliver on the services. While you were doing that pilot, did you bump into students who did need extra care and support? And then what was the process of getting them to that support as an IR team versus an advising team?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We did see a number of students that were like, I've run into this problem. Maybe it's a, registration issue, or I don't know where to turn for help, so we could connect them with different resources. I know we connected people with our academic coaching and tutoring resources. So, more than just tutoring, actually the academic coaching so they can get better at being a student, not just getting better at studying, which is certainly part of it. But connect them with that resource. Sometimes we connect them with counseling services. Sometimes we connect them with, other resources here on campus that we thought, okay, and and oftentimes we would direct them to their advisor. Hey, this is a conversation you need to have with your advisor, but not just leave it at that, right? Actually do what we'd call a warm handoff. So maybe in the email, include the advisor on the CC line. And so you could put a seed for that conversation already. And then in the email, hey, Mr. or Miss Advisor, can you please reach out to the student regarding this situation? That way we weren't getting out of our scope, as far as what we could really help best with, but we could be that initial point of contact and have that nice warm handoff. So it's again, person to person to person.
Yeah, yeah, that just it makes this is really such a great collaborative effort too, and then just making sure that students get connected to what they need. So let's follow this train of thought, this story. So you do this pilot, you publish these results to the broader institution. What do people do with that? What do they think? How do they take that and apply that to their efforts moving forward?
Right. So a lot of the question next was, okay, how do we use this? Right. And even though we had done training with some of our different platforms within the Civitas learning platform, it was a call. I got a number of calls. Hey, can you come train us on this? Hey, can you come, review? We know we've heard it before, but we really hadn't listened. So, or done much with it. A lot of it is convincing people that what you're giving to them is something that's going to make their life easier and more efficient, right? So it increases, as an advisor, it's going to increase your effectiveness and your efficiency because you can reach out to a lot of students that all need that same messaging at the same time with a single email. And then maybe I'm creating, different messages based on their persistence prediction category so that the low and very lows, they're going to be more urgent, more intrusive. Like if I don't hear from you, I'm calling you kind of thing like we did. And where the high and very high, that doesn't need to be as immediate. It's just more of a, hey, I'm here if you need anything. So, and those students are more likely to reach out when they do reach into, when they do run into issues. So doing that training, getting to understand that, hey, this is really important. And then it was kind of coincidental because as some of the analysts there at Civitas did some research for us, did some analysis on what is the impact of having one advising appointment, or one or more advising appointment. And that came back to be about 10% increased in persistence. Wow, that's bigger than any single initiative we had analyzed on our campus at the time. So we're like, okay, this is really, really important. So we began a focus on, we need to set a goal to have every student have an advising appointment. That's going to give us an instant, you know, 10 percentage point lift in persistence if we can accomplish that. So we started tracking it. Um, and so I was pulling data from our Inspire platform. And initially, we didn't mandate, hey, everybody's going to do this in Inspire. Um, but once we realized we're probably missing a lot and we really want to measure it, we did mandate, hey, you're going to do this in Inspire because one, it's easier for you. We know that. And then two, that way I can capture, as the analyst, I can capture all the data. So I started doing, bringing that data in. I pulled it into a Power BI platform and put it on a dashboard. And this is the drill down. There was a higher level that gave just this just the measurement against the goal, which you can see here. And this was summer of 2024. When we started in spring of 24, we accomplished, I think, 44% of our goal. In the summer here, we got to almost 109% of our goal. So like, wow, this is really, really exciting. The next fall of 24, because we had more students, it was more of a challenge, but we still went up to about 66% of our goal. And because of that, um, we really started, you know, focusing on what's really good for students and more people. And again, I got more and more calls for, you know, let's do some more training. Let's do this. Okay, great. And so at the end of the fall, we wanted to do an impact analysis on, okay, now that we're really focused on this as a college-wide and requiring the use of the Inspire tool and you know having that goal one per student, let's evaluate again. So I went ahead and did a an advising analysis, again, using the impact analysis tool, initiative analysis in our Civitas learning platform. This is the first set I did. And the first one was, let's look at fall advising versus no appointment whatsoever. And we saw 14.7. I'm like, wow, that's huge. That's really, really big. That's so exciting that we're making such a difference. And then, but I wanted to parse it out too, because we can have advising appointments in person, or we can have them virtually, or we can have phone calls. And I capture all that information in Inspire. So I took the individuals who had an in-person appointment versus no appointment, because first I wanted to do against the aggregate. So in person versus not having any appointment. And it was a slightly higher lift. And then I pitted the in-person versus the not in-person. So it's kind of yeah, it's really a test of the modality. And that came up as a 1.1, not statistically significant. What that tells me is it really didn't make a difference, whether it was in person or not in person. The key was to actually have the advising appointment for those students to be able to get this kind of lift. And the lift just kept getting bigger and bigger. One of the things our chief academic officer asked me to do is he said, we have two different kinds of advisors. We have staff advisors that are full-time advisors, and there's some advising that is done by our faculty. So that's an addition, a part of their duties um, for being a full-time faculty member. So he wanted to see how is that impact different, and then he also wants me to put it together with budgetary data. So the first step in that is actually looking at the lift and persistence of the two groups. So what I did was I took all the staff advising appointments and I compared that to not having an advising appointment. And I also did not include anybody who had a faculty advisor assigned. So it was just staff advising versus people who are likely to go to a staff advisor because they didn't have a faculty advisor. And that was 21.5% lift. absolutely off the charts. I've never seen anything this big. And we talked earlier, Katie, and you hadn't seen anything this big. I'm wondering if it's the biggest ever that's been done in the initiative analysis. It was just so huge. And then I looked at the faculty advising appointments, and that also had a very large lift. It looks like it's small compared to the 21.5, but keep it in perspective. It's still 11 and a half percentage point lift, which is huge. And it makes sense to us because the fact you don't get a faculty advisor until you're so far along, right? You have at least so many credits so that those students are already more likely to persist. And to think that we're still getting 11.6 percentage point lift with those students is amazing because they're already more likely to persist, and we're increasing that even higher.
Yeah. Can you share with me a minute or with us, the audience, how advising is structured at Greenville Tech, just for context?
Sure, for context, in general, a new student gets assigned a staff advisor, and in up through at least 12 credits, 12 to 15 credits. After their 15 credits, that may change depending on their program. For the majority of students, they'll get a new advisor that's aligned with their program. For some of them, if they're in like an Associate of Science or an Associate of Arts, more general curriculum, they may remain with a staff advisor.
I know you're on the IR team and work closely with your colleagues in other departments, but do you happen to know how the advising team is using the platform to support their work? And can you speak to that at all?
There has been wider and wider adoption. Of course, I can see, and on the chart, I think that I showed you where we're tracking the appointments. We also list out who's at the top, right? Who's having the most appointments. And also in that, I can drill down by department, by school and department, so that each department can look and say, okay, who's doing really well, which kind of by default tells them who's not adopting. So having that kind of a little bit of competitive aspect to it helps drive some of the adoption as well. So that's been really good to see. But other than that, I don't have a lot of insight into it. Other than I will say this, I know that with the 40X efforts that we've had, a lot of people are saying, okay, let's utilize our predictive analytics platform. Let's utilize Inspire for Advisors so um, we can do the outreach. And then they come to me and say, okay, where are we at and how do we use it? Right. So one of the keys of the 40X is measuring where you're at now, setting a goal, and then measuring against the goal as you move along.
Yeah, so it's not just about, I mean, it's fantastic that it's all connected. You can make appointments, you can see notes, you can make lists of students, you can do a lot of really great workflow type things in the platform. But it sounds like one of the key um, features that are really supporting the work to get students the support they need is being able to identify who needs proactive outreach and engagement and getting in front of those students, not relying on students to come to you, not relying on students to raise their hand. Is that where people are kind of organizing their work, how they're prioritizing their outreach and their capacity?
Yes, and part of this kind of renewed interest in the platform as people are learning it and they realize, oh, this is really key to be able to segment those students so that you have the ones that are needing the outreaches the most, right? That need that intervention right now. I can identify who they are and I can spend my time there. I can spend the majority of my time there. And then, as I can fit in other things, I can reach out to those ones that are on the other end of the spectrum with the very high and the high persistence category because they just need that lighter touch. Right. I often use a medical analogy. Those students in the very low and low, they're like, somebody that's showing up in the ER with a compound fracture or active heart attack kind of thing. They need somebody right now to come alongside and be a partner with them to be able to help them through whatever they're going through. The ones in the very high and the high, they need a multivitamin. They need, right, some essential oils or whatever, to make them feel better about themselves, a little bit of encouragement, give them a little, you can do this. and they're good with that. That's all they need. And they have a resource they can go to if things start falling apart.
Yeah. Yeah, and that makes sense. It's like matching the right support with the right student rather than giving everyone triaging everyone for a compound fracture,
Right.
and which uses a lot of resources. It's figuring out like who needs that higher level support and who needs just some like good strategies and some guidance to get to their goals. Makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
Um, in the fall, I had the honor of seeing you present on some of the work that you're doing to not only measure and assess impact, but correlate that impact to a return on investment in your services for students. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that work as well?
Yeah, absolutely. As part of the strategic data project that was operated out of the Harvard Center for Education Policy and Research, was able to do some research, and we looked at our success initiatives and analyzed it, just like you said, looking at that lift and persistence, and then coupling it with budgetary data. And the way I broke it down was I looked from the budget perspective, I looked at how much are we spending per term student. So in other words, per student per term, so that we get an idea of that monetary value going toward each student, but then coupling that with that lift and persistence for uh, for the different success initiatives, and then plotting that out on a four quadrant chart. And we came up with this, which was fantastic. The great news, we saw a lot of our um, success initiatives making a big impact. And you can see up in the upper left-hand corner, most of our success initiatives were up there. And that's the quadrant we wanted to be in. Low spend, high lift, right? Fantastic. And just seeing this, putting this together, we were able to make some immediate decisions of change. Oh, brain fused tutoring, we were able to make some immediate decisions with like brain fused tutoring. That's a 24/7 online tutoring service that we had contracted. And when when we looked at, oh, this is really effective and it's really cheap, let's increase the cap because it was capped at like you could use it twice a month. Like, well, that's silly. Let's do more. So we doubled or tripled it instantly. We we looked at academic coaching and tutoring and we're able to say, you know what, this is a really valuable program. Let's put some more resources behind it. Same with our OMSI program. This is doing great. Let's double the capacity right there. So we're instantly able to say, all right, because of this, we can make decisions right now. And then we can also ask questions about things like why are Greenville Tech Foundation scholarship recipients not having such a big lift as like our work study? Obviously there's a lot more money going into work study, but with federal work study, it wasn't our money. So we weren't quite so concerned about that. But why else would there be such a big disparity? Maybe a $500 scholarship is not enough to affect persistence. So that's one conversation. But the other conversation we were able to have is what are the big differences here? And when I talked to the foundation folks about their process, I said, do you ever reach out to your scholarship recipients and ask, how are things going? Right. And they're like, no, that was a totally new concept. Why would we do that? Right? We're giving out scholarships. No, your goal is to help people persist and then reach their end goal. Maybe we can do that. Because in a work study, what do you have that's already built in? It is that person that you show up to, maybe it's a couple times a week, that already knows the college and you have a rapport with, somebody that's going to ask you, how are your classes going? Right? And somebody that you can ask, hey, I got this email from a registrar. Who is that? What do I need to do with this? Right? So that's those questions that a lot of us may just, and, just we think as assumed knowledge for our students, it gives them that opportunity to have that kind of built-in mentor relationship with a work study there. So I was able to do that. And And then the goal is to replicate this on a regular cycle so that we can see, well, are the changes that we made having an effect? Are we doing better? Can we increase this? So, and then finally, my goal with the advising, separating that out between the staff and the faculty is to do a similar kind of thing. So right now, we're actually in the process of trying to identify the budgetary data that we need so we can put those things together.
Yeah, it's really remarkable when you lay it out, plot it out like that on a uh, chart, and you can kind of see exactly what's going on, and not necessarily get answers. What I think is really important here is part of it is pointing you in the right direction of what kinds of questions to ask, what the right questions are, and maybe reveals opportunities or highlights opportunities that you might miss otherwise, it seems.
Right, right, absolutely. And one of the things we've been working really hard at across the college is we are not using data to beat you over the head with or to poke you in the eye with. We have to use data so that we can get better at what we do. Don't you want to know if what you're doing isn't working well? And then let's see what we can do to help make it better, right? You may have noticed there was one initiative way down in the lower left-hand corner, our caring corner. Like, okay, why isn't this helping people persist better? Well, one thing is there's some limitations in the analysis, right? We don't have a lot of data in our student information system that's really indicative of students who might need help from this food pantry. The other thing is maybe $13.95 isn't enough, right? To really make a difference for somebody who's food insecure. So
Or and
yeah,
I,
sorry, it really does enable great conversations to be able to get better at what we do.
Yeah, and sometimes too, we're looking at persistence, but there are so many other factors and outcomes that we want for our students during the student experience. We want them to thrive. We want them to be career ready. We want them to complete as soon as possible, right? And those are all really important pieces of a successful college experience as well. And sometimes initiatives may be influencing those outcomes, and having, one of the things that we're doing here at Civitas Learning is creating technology to be able to look at that broader picture. But I think just because an initiative, maybe doesn't have impact, or maybe an initiative doesn't have the ROI that you were expecting, like you were saying, it's not it's to be like, we gotcha. It's
You,
to be like, what's going on there, and ask deeper
Mhm.
questions. And there could be so many factors. It could be wildly impactful in other domains, but it could be that it's not enough. Dosage matters. The amount of aid matters.
Mhm.
Timing matters. There's so many factors. And I think these kinds of analyses and conversations can help you to become more precise, because you can start to reveal those more nuanced aspects, and paint with a finer brush.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you are doing so much work, and you shared some of the incremental successes that you're seeing, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk through like what kinds of goals, successes, things like easing workload, efficiency, better outcomes, making progress towards some of your institutional outcomes. I give you an opportunity to brag a little bit about what you're accomplishing with this work that you're doing.
Yeah. So I, I've kind of talked about it a little bit already, is just the renewed focus on how important an advising appointment really is for the student. I think it's easy to fall into a sense of, well, it's not really all that important to a student. We just sit down, we talk about schedule for the next term and those kind of conversations where they should be able to figure it out on their own anyway. But this is really revealing that it is so important to have a personal connection to somebody on the campus and to have that advising appointment where maybe we talk a little bit more about a little bit more than just the schedule for next term. Let's talk about when do you think you're going to finish? Right? We had a conversation with one of our students when we were doing the outreaches, again, as IR people, like, okay, when do you think you're going to finish? And based on his credit taking rate, it was completely unrealistic. I'm like, no, actually, if you keep taking classes at the rate you're taking classes now, it's going to be like 6 years. And the look on the student's face was, that, I thought this was a 2-year program. Yes, it's a 2-year program if you take it at the recommended um, pace. But if you don't, that really impacts. And he had no idea that it was going to affect it that much. And you can have the conversation about, okay, let's look at how it's going to change if you take one class or two more classes per term, and how that's going to shorten that time to credential, right? That is so important for you because we want to get you there, and we also know the longer it takes, the less likely you are going to be able to, you're going to complete it. So the sooner we can, the better. But we also have to balance that right with our students because maybe 15 credits isn't right, right? 60% of our students here at Greenville Tech are part-time students. And we know a lot of them are working one or two or more part-time jobs, full-time jobs, and many of them are caring for, children, other dependents, other family members. So it's hard to fit it all in. So having that conversation about what is the right thing for you, even sometimes when students completely withdraw from all of their classes, I think oftentimes we, as an institution, we would think, oh, well, there goes another student, and then we don't do anything else. One of the things I've really been emphasizing with our advisors is when that happens with a student, that is not a dead end. That is an opportunity to reach out and say, hey, connect about what are the issues that are going on, and then let's have a conversation about how we move forward next. Because whether that's life or logistics or, a sense of community, what do we do to move forward? What is the plan? Because if there's some kind of catastrophic medical issue, okay, all right, maybe the right thing for you was to withdraw from all of your classes right now. What are we going to do next term? What's your plan? Let's make a plan. Oh, and then we have a plan, then we have hope, and then we have forward momentum, right? And then finally, you put a note on your schedule, right, as the advisor. Reach out to this student on this day so that we can have that follow-up conversation about how are things looking right now? Are the two courses that we planned for, does that look like the right thing for you? Or do you think you can do one more? Or do you think you need to go down to one, right? So that we don't just fire and forget, we do some follow-up and we maintain that connection with that student. And it doesn't take a lot of effort, just takes a little bit.
Yeah, it's really remarkable just the level of refined support, like individualized support at scale that you can deliver when you think about it this way. It seems like that's kind of a concierge approach when you talk about it conceptually, but I think if you have data and insights into what's happening and you know what works, it makes really delivering that level of individualized support that you described, especially with a student, like it's going to take you 6 years because of the way you're pacing it. What, like, students are juggling so much that having that individualized conversation that they know it applies to them and it's not just general information can be so powerful, and having access to the right data and systems makes that scalable, I think, in a way that maybe it wasn't possible 5, 10 years ago, or for
Yeah,
people who don't have access to those tools. And it makes such a big difference.
it really does. It really does. And the capability to personalize that messaging as it goes out, even though you might be doing something at scale, is really helpful too, because I get people who talk, oh wow, this is personalization is really neat. But there's always that one person who doesn't go by their first name, right? They have some kind of nickname or they go by their middle name or, so, and the platform is set up so that you can bring in that first name, which in general is the right thing. But I always tell them, you know what, if you know that student doesn't like to be called by their first name, don't include them in that list. Use the same message, but send them something different and then personalize it for them so that, if, whatever their first name is, you're using that name they prefer. It's really helpful for them to feel like, oh, this is not, some kind of blocked out, pre-processed, spam that's coming to me. This is actually from somebody on campus who cares about me and my situation, and I'd love to respond and move forward. It makes that student so much more willing to come and reach out and say, you know what, I really could use some help and I don't know where to turn. Okay, let's have a conversation. Let's connect you to resources. Let's get you the help you need.
Yeah, it makes such a big difference. Well, we've covered so much ground, and thank you so much for sharing the graphs and visuals. I think that's great. If you're listening to the episode in audio, head over to YouTube and you can see a video version of the episode where you can see all of the charts that Kevin shared with us. And before we sign off, Kevin, I would love for you if there's anything else that we missed or any other lessons that you've learned that you'd like to share with our listeners, I want to give you an opportunity to do that.
Sure. I think probably the biggest takeaway is that individuals can make a difference. And it doesn't have to be overwhelming. It doesn't have to take up, 10, 12 hours of your day as an advisor. You can leverage the predictive analytics, you can leverage the searching. And even if you don't have something like that, take the time to do it for the one or two or five or six. Because if everybody does a little bit, then that lift can be really, really huge.
Yeah, can be really big. And it's
Hmm.
incremental, it builds, right?
Yes.
It's a collection of these efforts. It's really amazing when there's a really powerful impact, like you shared with advising, but oftentimes it's a little incremental gain can make a really big difference.
Yep. Absolutely.
Kevin, thank you so much for coming on Next Practices.
Thank you, Katie.